I've met a handful of women who have been in the same situation you're in, and they had the paperwork pushed in front of them. And it's fascinating how many of them say, if you have to choose, I want you to make sure that my baby survives, and I don't. And I'm thinking, like, they're literally saying, I am going to give my life up for a human being that I've never even met before, but I've been carrying them around inside of me, in your case, for about 6.5 months, and give this child a chance of life, even if that means I have to die in the process.
Exactly.
And I don't think many people can understand how gut-wrenching signing that form is. That's the worst. That's one of the worst feelings in the world, to choose which one of the two is going to survive if it gets to the worst case scenario.
That's right. You're absolutely right. And unfortunately, that wasn't the only time that I had to sign a paper that said, if my life ends, then that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go forward in time just a week.
Yeah.
You've just had the baby. You got some aches and pains. Now it's Friday. You're laying down, and all of a sudden something is very, very wrong. Pick up the story here where I interrupted you.
So something is very, very wrong. I go to the doctor, and they say, you have had a heart attack recently. I said, no.
Wait a second. 26 years old, and the doctor said, I need you to say that again for the listener who's driving and missed that one.
Right. The doctor says, you've had a heart attack recently. And I said, no, I have had a baby recently. And
maybe you misunderstood baby for heart attack.
Right, exactly. And he said, no, your troponin levels, your heart function, your ejection fraction, everything is out of whack. You've had a heart attack recently.
Wow.
So I get hooked up with a cardiologist, and he says, you have a condition called peripartum cardiomyopathy. It's an unexplained...
Yeah, I have no idea what you just said, but something about baby and heart. It sounds like that's what that has to do.
Peripartum, right? There's that maternal part. Cardiomyopathy.
Baby.
Is
heart.
Right, is a weakening of the heart muscle due to pregnancy, but it's completely unexplained. We can't line up 100, we call it PPCM, peripartum cardiomyopathy. We can't line up 100 PPCM women and say, this is the contributing factor. It's just completely unexplained. And what happened is so my son is in the neonatal ICU, and then they admit me into cardiac ICU across the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
And my mom and my husband are running back and forth between
two different hospitals?
Same hospital, thankfully.
Yeah.
Different, obviously different
wards, different, right? Yeah.
And I am trying to produce breast milk, so they're bringing me blankets of his to smell, and they're bringing him things of me so that he can create an attachment.
Wow.
And it's just chaos. But eventually I get to go home about 2 weeks later, and I've got all these new medications and all of these new things to manage as now a heart failure patient. And about a week and a half after I got home, they sent him home at 3 pounds and 5 ounces. So I have me, Brittany, the 26-year-old that is in here with 5 new medications.
And moving houses and everything else in life is up.
And I've got Micah, the 3-pound miracle baby, that can't fit any preemie clothes because they're too big, and has to eat every hour and a half because that's how big his stomach is. So we managed, and Micah grew, and we did all the right things for 2 years. We did all the right things. And then one day I was at work and I was walking down the hallway, and I had to stop and put my back against the wall because the room was moving in a way it shouldn't have been. So I went back to my cardiologist, and he said, your heart has been doing really well up until then. And with peripartum cardiomyopathy, there's a very small percentage of women that don't recover. Usually within time, the heart recovers and it's fine. But there's a 3% that go on to need further care. There's 1% that go on to need a heart transplant.
Well, let me ask you real quick, what is the percentage? I've never heard of this condition before. Never heard of anybody who had it. So what's the percentage of women that this is going to happen to?
The percentage of women that have peripartum cardiomyopathy is it's actually often misdiagnosed. So
Uh-huh.
to be incredibly honest with you, the first hospital that I went to, they told me I was having a panic attack and to go home and go back to sleep.
Oh, they said it's all in your head.
So I had to go to a second
Wow.
hospital, but it affects. It says about 1,000 to 1,300 women in the U.S. develop this every year. So depending on the pregnancies you have, yeah,
20 million, 50 million women.
that's pretty fair to say. That's pretty fair.
And then you said there's a small percentage. So a lot of women who are diagnosed with this, the doctors say you might recover, you might not. What did they tell you when they said you have this?
They said you're young, you're strong, you'll probably be fine. We're pretty sure that you'll be. This is your first pregnancy. Your body doesn't have a lot of extra damage. You're healthy. Otherwise, you'll be okay. You'll be fine.
But the worst case scenario is a small percentage. Go ahead.
1%. And I remember the doctor saying, like, I said, what is the prognosis for this? He said, I really feel like you'll be fine. He said, I mean, worst case scenario, like 1% of women need like a heart transplant, like something crazy insane. But you'll be fine. You're young, you'll be fine.
And now 2 years later, you're walking down the hall and you're not fine, and the room is spinning, and you got to stand up with your back against the wall.
Put my back against the wall, and I get to a chair. I call my doctor. He says, "Come in." So I go into the doctor's office, and he said, "Your heart failure is getting a little bit worse."
He said the words heart failure.
Right, because peripartum cardiomyopathy.
And you're still in your 20s right now,
yeah,
right?
Oh, yeah, we are. I am 28, and I have a 2-year-old at home. And yes, your heart failure is getting worse. And what that basically means is your heart is not squeezing as strongly as it should be. That's how they kind of measure heart failure.
Wow.
So just to be safe, so I don't know that you will need it. You're having just some irregular beats. I don't know that you'll need it, but let's put in a pacemaker and a defibrillator just to be sure, just to cover our bases. So we put in I went and had surgery. So we did the pacemaker and the defibrillator and got that taken care of. And I had that for about 6 months. And then I was laying in bed one night talking to my husband, and I died.
Yeah, you got to say that again because somebody missed that one. The children are pulling at their attention, and they just totally missed that one. You're laying in bed, and what just happened?
Laying in bed talking to my husband, not doing anything major, and I died. And everything just went black. And then the next thing I remember, I'm taking this deep breath, and my chest is in pain, and everything hurts. And I'm being loaded into an ambulance, and I get to the hospital, and they're like, "Okay, your heart, you had a heart attack, and thankfully you had the defibrillator. It shocked you back, it got your rhythm back. You're okay." So I stayed in the hospital for a couple of days, and then they sent me home with some new medications, and that was kind of it. But then over the next 4 years, I died 5 more times.
Wow. 6 times in 4 years.